Good evening, how are you? Nice to see you all. Thanks all for coming along for a special night. Got two of the most important people, I think, in Guernsey rock history. Certainly the cornerstone of what has come, and what has come to be the Guernsey rock scene now. I know that you all know them. Hopefully you'll get to know them a little bit more tonight. So I'm going to start. Let's go on and see what happens, right?
I'll tell you what I can do. I can show them my shirt. Is it bleach? Will that give you a bit of will it give you a minute?
Yeah, you might have to.
Okay. Do a mime, Pete. The bleach in the matrix.
I'm going to restart. So
this is one of my original gig shirts. How about that?
I had one of those in yellow. Honestly.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's where it went.
Well, yeah. You've obviously dyed it since. It's because it's Pride Week.
This is. If anybody wants to make me an offer, this is an actual Lord John Carnaby Street shirt. I forget what it cost me, but I only wore it a few times. But I can actually still get into it.
Isn't surgery wonderful?
You'll find out in a minute. So that's the shirt.
You've got the shoes?
No, I haven't got the shoes. I've got my shoes on today.
I'm sorry, you don't wear shoes.
I can tell you a story about my shoes if Pat wants us to. We did a gig down at. We did a gig down at the on the balcony a couple of years ago, and we finished the gig. I had my push bike down there because I was going to cycle home, and I went down the side passageway. And there were two young lasses down there, probably 14 or 15 or something like that, and they said, "Were you in the band?" I thought, right. I said, "Yeah, I'm up there." They said, "Oh, our dad." I think they said our dad. I think they might have said our grandpa. Said we should come and watch you because it's worth seeing. And we'd seen you the night before at the West Show, where we had North Show, where we had actually a really good gig. And we thought the youngsters were going to go after the young bandifish, but they all stuck around, which was really quite flattering. And this lass said to me, "Are you a teacher?" I said, "Yeah." And she said to her friend, "There, I told you." Because I said, she said, "I knew it was you." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, at the North Show you were playing in your bare feet." I said, "Yeah, what's that got to do with it?" She said, "Well, you came to teach us one day at Cacos and you were walking around the classroom in your bare feet." She recognised my feet.
Thank you for saving me there. And thank you to Billy. Billy's doing our sound tonight, so thanks very much, Billy. And also, could I just say a really big thank you to Greg and all the other guys at St James for actually saying, come and do this, because it's such a good space, and it's great good place to get everybody together, so thanks very much. Right, so, Sarge, I'm going to come to you first. We have a connection. I'm sure everybody here doesn't know what it is, but we have a connection. Obviously, you're the young man on the left-hand side, and this gentleman on the right-hand side who's playing the organ is my grandfather. Okay, so that's Jack Hodder. You might remember Jack Hodder. He had was it a garage at the top of Petty Bow?
We had a cafe.
Yeah, cafe.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I never met him, but yeah, I'm sure some of you remember Jack Hodder. So this has been 64, 65?
63 probably.
63?
Yeah. Well, this might have been 64. Jack bought me that bass, and I'll tell you the story how that went. I came back from something like the hill climb, and I got home. Mum was preparing dinner for 8 guests in the B&B that she ran, which is now the famous dental laboratory at Temple View in St Martin's. And she said, "Oh, you've got to get yourself down to the Mont au Nord, which is in the south of the island, which is an anomaly, but apparently it's the northernmost hotel of the Jersey company that owned it. But anyway, that's another story. So how I got my guitar amplifier and my bike. So the Monte Nord was a bit of a mystery to me. But anyway, I got there, and Jack was there, and that is a Vox Continental. And inspired by John Lennon, he went out and bought a Vox Continental in Wilton, which was, you know, a big investment. And what you'll see on the top of that is something else called the Hona Pianette, which is a very popular sound. And he went out and bought one of those. But this was taken at the Grand Rock Hotel. It's the only picture of me playing a bass. Proof that I once was a bass player.
And then it went downhill.
From there, yeah.
Okay.
So, Mum said, you know, go see these guys. She rung up because she saw something in the press to say that this band was looking for a singer, a singer and a guitar player. So I turned up and these guys were there. The drummer is Brian Carpenter. I think his real name might be Le Charpentier, but he went by the name of Brian Carpenter. And he sang and played drums. He lived up near the airport. And the bass player was a guy called Malcolm, who was about 6'6", and I think he became a copper. But I'm not really quite sure, but I think I met him doing game shows some years earlier. Anyway, they said, what do you do? I said, well, I can sing a few songs, and I play guitar badly. And he said, well, what do you do? I said, Kansas City, Help, blah, blah, blah. You know, and he said, you're in. You start tomorrow night, and it's 5 bob. 5 bob was 25p. We weren't really rich in them days, but for 5 bob you could actually go out in the mid-60s, probably get a bag of crisps and several pints of beer and enjoy it. Anyway, so that's how I started working with Jack, and I did the summer season at the Monte Nord, moved to the Forest Hotel, which was quite a lot of fun during the Christmas season, because Les, I can't remember his last name, the guy who ran the Forest Hotel, was also a musician. And Jack was a sax player as well, and they had jam sessions. So I did that one, and then we went for the summer to the Grand Rock Hotel, run by Claude Way, and his mum. Now somebody will correct me here, but I think her name might have been May Way. I'm not quite sure about that. Somebody's nodding, so maybe he remembers that. Am I right? Yeah, great.
It's in the
she
book,
used to sing Sonia Cherie. How I got to... Ooh. Anyway, there are quite a few chord changes in Sonia Cherie. Anyway, there you go, and I played there, and that's when he spotted me. This is Ken Johnson, by the way, bass player.
I don't blame me.
Yeah, I am blaming you. Anyway, because of playing and being out in public, I was only 15, 16 at the time, I eventually got an offer, and that come later.
Okay, thanks very much for that. We're going to move on now and we'll talk, we'll say a few things to Pete. First of all, this is a very serious looking young man, isn't it? Very serious. So, is this your first foray into musical?
This was my very first first foray into music, that's for sure. Well, actually, it wasn't my first. I started by playing the cymbals in the Cadet Force band, and the idea was to move on to drums. That's what we all wanted to do, so I thought it might be my sort of route into being famous or something like that. But they started me off on the cymbals, and I can be a bit perverse at times, and I found out that on a hot sunny day, when you're in the Cadet Force, one of the great things to do is faint, because you can just go and sit under a tree. And we used to have this, what do they call it, the final parade up College Field.
Yes.
We'd have general inspection, that was it. And we did that, and I think I ended up sitting under a tree a few times. But I also found out that if you got the sun just right in the dish of the cymbal, you could shine it on the back of the bloke in front's head. What's that?
So who are these guys then? Who are these guys being?
Okay, well, I think, blimey, but the answer is £3.15 shillings, by the way. The bloke at the back is a bloke called Martin Nichols. He didn't carry on in bands for long, did Martin. I think he sort of played drums a little bit, but he was like me, a step force drummer, and I think he only drummed when the big parade was coming up, and we had a couple of the CCF drums up in my attic, so half a kit. The guy at the back, the guy on the left, actually is someone that a lot of you might know. He's an ex-police sergeant. Yeah. Well, good spot. That's Dave Longley, who you'll probably know as one of the guys who was running the Sark Folk Festival for quite a period of time. Went to New Zealand, sadly died a couple of years ago. And Dave was one of my childhood mates, and we all lived on the same road. And that was one of our earliest attempts at playing something. In fact, my guitar strap is made of plaited box cord, which Mum and Dad used to use to tie up the flower baskets, I think, something like that. Eh? And I don't know why I was into plaiting, but I was. And yeah, Dave was always the first person to wish me a happy birthday on Facebook when that came along, because he lived in New Zealand, so it came up. And then 2 years ago, it didn't come up, and I just sort of knew that. And then I found out that Dave had gone. Lovely, great lad, good athlete in his time too. Yeah, so there you go. Oh hell! Oh, right.
And this is your first band?
No, this is my first band. This is my first. This was my first, like, second division band. You know, I played in all the leagues like Guernsey FC, but I got asked to join these guys from one of my youth club bands that I was in. The guy, who's the guy standing up singing with a leather coat? Hey? Yeah, it's Tony Harrodine. The guy on the left playing bass with that echo violin bass is Graham LePedvin, good one. And the drummer was not, he's the original drummer with us, this guy. He was the plumber.
Oh, that's Hammy Hamill.
Yeah, A.O. Hamill. A.O. Hamill. We had this pathetic joke. We used to call him Ham, and of course there's obviously on the drums. The joke's a bit obvious, isn't it? So I won't say it.
Is this the Wayside?
Hey?
Is this the Wayside?
No. Hang on. I don't know what's the 66 up for then. But to give an idea, Graham is playing his bass through a 15-watt Watkins. You know, and they're tiny little things. But when I started playing with Us Limited, that was just before I went away to college, so I managed to squeeze in 1 gig at St George's Hall, which was fantastic. These guys did more, of course. And I'd gone away to college, and when I came back, Richard was no longer the drummer, Richard Hamill. He was replaced by another Richard.
Taylor?
Yeah, Rich Taylor became the drummer in this band.
Are there prices for this?
Hey?
Are there prices?
No, not at all. And in fact, I played in bands with Richard before, a couple of little youth club bands, and I didn't remember that until I went through my diaries the other day, and he joined me that early on. He then went into a band called Wet Paint, which might have had Mick Vermeulen in it. Might have. Yeah, so they were Wet Paint. It might have had a guy called Steve Harvey who was a sax player too.
I've moved along.
Oh, that's all right. So, and that's the end of the Us Limited to me. Also, a guy called Len Seeley was in there as well.
Right. Now this is an interesting one. Believe it or not, that's me at about 14 probably, playing in the middle with a Vox guitar, and John Carlyle on the right of the picture was playing his guitar, and Barry Collinet was the drummer, and Graham Robin, who I think that was probably the only time I ever played with Graham, was the bass player. So a very young band formed in the front room of Johnny Carlyle's house.
Where was that be?
That was at St John's Hall.
Oh, okay.
And the amplifier at my feet was an 8-watt amplifier, which is like most radios have got bigger power than that. And your hi-fis are probably 200 watts a side now, so you get, just it wasn't loud. But those holes were built to throw the sound out, so it probably worked. And people would be twisting, whatever.
Johnny Carlisle.
More from the B area.
Johnny Carlisle was the head boy at St Martin's when I was
I know
there.
that guy in the middle.
Did you know that?
Is that Terry Lynn?
Colin Watson, you worked with the brother of the chap on the left. Where are you, Colin? Up there. You worked with him. And your missus worked with him as well, with his brother. He's Chris, and his brother was Dennis. You worked with Dennis, didn't you? Yeah. The guy on the left's a guy called Chris Balls. He and his brother was the head of the grammar school. Chris left the island shortly after this. The guy in the back is a local Keith Bennett, who was an electrician and used to live in the Row Hayes. The guy in the middle at the front is a bloke called Paddy O'Sullivan. Paddy was later played regularly at St George's as part of a duo called Jan and Paddy. Anybody? No? They did little folky things. She ended up marrying a vicar in Sark.
And this is us limited.
Oh, yeah, that's got Len on the left with that magnificent head of hair that he had. Yeah, and a fairly magnificent. Oh, that was an early Stratby. That was a red Strat he had when I first joined him. He had
Len?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very early
What
days.
were you playing then, Pete? Because I couldn't identify.
Well, actually,
We both
we both had one of those. Yeah.
An Echo Scorpion.
Quite a nice actually, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Very nicely built Italian guitars.
Yeah, and
Worked most of the time.
we got Len had a Vox AC50 in the days. My one with the brown one was my Vox AC30, which I bought off of Barry Marley. Believe it or not. So all these names creep in. But yeah, that's the early Us Limited, and that's my very first guitar, playing with the Jesters. £3.15 from David's Music Shop, sort of thing. And the pickup on it, I think, cost more than the guitar. So yeah,
Quite
and
intricate looking thing.
where do you reckon that photo was taken then? Hotel-wise? We did a lot of gigs then, Pete.
Where was that, Pete?
Suttonese.
That was that.
That's Suttonese, yeah.
Wow.
It's the curtains that give it away.
Yeah. I actually, no, we got
Yeah.
£5 for that gig. Because I just happened to see it in my...
Was that
in
a
my
private
book.
party or something?
Yeah, it would have been, yeah.
Right.
But that would have been 1964.
Again.
Same guitar, yeah.
Oh,
Hair's getting a bit
No.
longer here.
Okay. These are two of the people who probably influenced me as a 14-year-old going to this very space that we're in now, which is St James Hall, where the Tina 20 Club was run by Brian and Jan Torrode. And on the left is Jerry Van Alec, known as Jerry Van Alec. And on the right was the rhythm player, Mr. Cool rhythm player, and that's Brian Bienvenu, known as Bev, or Brian. And either side of them, which we can't see at the moment, would
Any
have been
relation?
Dave Dales and probably Fred Hewlett would have been in there somewhere. I think you can just see his stick in between the two of them.
Yeah,
They were the
that's
Jets.
his stick for sure.
Brett started drumming, didn't he? And then Colin took over.
Yeah, when Marshy, yeah, when Ben went off the bass, they drafted in Colin and
push it a little.
Marshy. First time I saw him was in the little back room at
You nicked that off
the
there.
Lake. Well, this was taken at the Trellard on one of those hippie sort of nights. The shirt was made for me by a girl I was at college with, and for some reason I was playing Len's 12-string Burns, or tuning up him or something like that.
And that's your
I'm the
job.
one who got my picture in the paper playing this blooming Red Hot.
Right, and there is the ubiquitous Ford Anglia. That probably belonged to Tony.
Oh well. Tony and Ken in their Anglias.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Goodness.
Here we go.
Okay.
Oh, that's a good one.
Holly,
Okay.
Holly.
Yeah.
Nobody remembers Funny Holly.
Okay, this is the first photo shoot of in St George's Hall by Dave Harris, who was the manager of the King Bees and ultimately My Generation. And you've got Barry Colnett top left, Ken B. Johnson top centre. I've never seen the guy before, the one top right. So he looks a bit similar to...
I haven't. I think he's related.
Right, well that's Ken A. And the bottom left is Peter St John.
Oh, yes.
And the reason I did that, which was completely daft really, but you couldn't go out from Elizabeth College without wearing your cap, let alone playing a rock and roll band. So it was suggested that I might change my name. So I did.
And you always
And
wore shades.
back in the 60s, everybody who didn't really want to be known by their real name was called St John. Lindsay St John, Fred St John, Eddie St John, doesn't matter. So I became Peter St John. And that's me in the glasses. There's another shot from the same thing. I thought it was Artie Pugh that did the paintwork, but it wasn't. It was John Waterman. And they painted all the pop art designs were painted in the St George's Hall walls to make it, into a real pop art venue. And we were wearing pop art T-shirts.
Oh yeah.
And the jackets were okay. They were from the Army and Navy stores up in Mill Street. And the next thing, you go and buy them for £5 or whatever it was. I remember the guy who ran it, I can't remember his name. And we used to dye them. So the next thing is you get a pot of dye and stand in the kitchen stirring it and it will come out. And I remember another dye job that I did was, Mum, could you do this? It was the Small Faces, and Steve Marriott was wearing a green shirt with a yellow collar. Whoa. So I had my mum dye a white shirt from college green, and then separately we did the collar yellow, and I had the shirt of dreams. There you go. That's Ken's My Generation Anglia, and the same bunch of criminals there. But minus Vic Mai. I didn't get to say the other guy with the glasses was Vic Mai, who was with the band briefly, and then we became a four-piece. And that's taken behind the Channel Islands Hotel. You had to go up a very, very narrow... None of us had wing mirrors at the time, but you had that very narrow tunnel that you used to go up to get to the car park. Yeah, and that was taken at the track. And we were sponsored by Coca-Cola, so that's why we're stood in front of the hoardings, because the band won the Battle of the Bands down in Jersey, which was sponsored by Coca-Cola. There you go.
And
it was a wet day.
Tell us a bit about about going to London and being threatened, I think, in the recording.
We did go to Strathmore Street, yeah. That was the other part of the plot, was that they flew us to London.
Remember we signed an NDA,
No.
non-disclosure agreement on the London trip.
Can you lip read?
Well, I can't.
Strathmore Street, yeah, it was cold. Remember that?
But I was at that gig.
And we didn't win that part. But the main thing about going to London was meeting up with Richard Loring, Guernseyman, who was working in the West End at one of the shows there, and he was very friendly towards us and showed us around. First time I ever saw Cream was at the Marquee Club. We all went, but we had dinner waiting around the corner, so we had to leave before Cream concert finished. I was devastated. I'd have gone hungry, but no. Come on, there's a steak waiting for you. So we did that, and then the next day, I think it was the next day, it was mentioned that we might actually make a recording while we were over there. And Denmark Street. So I think it was Richard that arranged it. and we went into Regent Sound, Ken, am I right?
Yep, that's
Yeah,
absolutely right.
and Regent Sound was a very small studio, but it was being used by so many artists in London. Everybody you can think of went through Regent Sound making demos, and it was the publishing street as well as the shop street, so you could buy anything you wanted there in terms of music, especially guitars. And the publishers were upstairs, so it was a really good thing to do. And actually, I looked up the guy his name was Adrian, and he became quite a famous producer in London when they put a bigger studio, Regent Sound, up Tottenham Court Road. I can't remember his name now, the last name. I should have researched it more. Google it. But anyway, we ended up with, I don't know how many, but we all ended up with some what they call wide label acetate records with the 2 songs that we were performing, which we'd written.
And do you want to hear one?
Yeah.
You want to hear one? Here we go. He says.
Don't turn right, it's hard working, just stand aside, just you and me, don't get along, oh baby, hear that song, traffic lights, and I'm outside there, gotta go straight through, I gotta ride, well they're red, and they're amber, and they're green, let's go, go get a long night you, yeah. Go get a love in your GT car. Every day, hear what I say. Stop that thing. Keep up, don't turn right. This whole world, stay inside. Just you and me, don't get along. I say, yeah, that song, traffic lights, ain't on my side yet. Gotta go straight through. I gotta ride with their breath, their hammer, and gone. Come on, smash those keys. Come on, all right, come
This era was
Oh, I don't, no, I don't. When my next is coming ball, I look to the left and then to the right. I see a big sign, I see a big sign. Keep left, don't turn right.
We all finished together as well, which is even more important.
That riff is from Green Genie, except Green Genie, or Gene Genie, rather. Green Genie.
6 years later.
Gene Genie,
6
yeah.
years later,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was, yeah.
So he ripped us off.
Oh, I don't know.
When I saw Pete the other day, actually, I did say, did you ever think about suing David Bowie? Because to me, that is, as you said,
Yeah.
Well,
great, isn't it?
I think it's pretty pointless now.
Yeah.
But no, I think to be honest, as a guitarist, I think it's a fairly natural riff that you would come out with, you know. But as a songwriter, I was always trying to convince my band members that we could do some original material, and bless them, they let me try it. And we were up in probably in the shed behind the old dairy at the Barrio.
The Vinery.
The Vinery, yeah.
Yeah,
It's Robin Bartlett's place.
place, yeah.
And it would just be a Sunday afternoon jam session, and I'd be sort of saying, I've done this, what do you think? And the B-side was called Getting Out. It was a little bit more intricate, maybe, a little bit Latin American. Hey Mark, I want to see. So that was really quite exciting. Do we want to get to this?
Yeah, I was going to say, of course, the other nice thing is that it's had a new lease of life in the last couple of years, thanks to Mark Legale, who, because of his connections with releasing records, actually approached you to use that acetate to actually put that out as a single, and it's done really quite well.
Amazing energy from Mark. And he got in touch with me to say he'd moved up to the Manchester area, and he was just down the road from me. So we got together and had lunch and chatted, and we were talking about old times. And he just asked me, do you have any archives? And I said, well, how much do you want? You know, because we were doing all sorts of scrapbooks and collecting photographs and things. And I was also doing amateur recordings of shows as well. So I did actually mention that I had the acetate from this record. And Mark actually took it down to London and got an expert to recut the acetate and then digitally improve it. Because acetates really were meant to be listened to once and thrown in the bin by publishers. That's basically what they were. They were throwaway. But you were always trying to sell your music. And that's how they emerged, really. They're called white labels. Well, I had mine, and I gave it to Mark, and he took it down to London, and this guy upgraded it. And then Mark decided he'd got his label, Fab Records, and he decided he'd do a short run, and that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
So 56 years later, our recording got published. Unbelievable.
It's a great story. Great story.
1 week it was
Did you get one?
Oh yeah, it was 156 on the Preston hit parade.
Wow.
Only Fred Perry and the Winkle Pickers kept us out of the top 155.
Well, when I don't know if you people remember this, when they did that, you did that gig in Streatham at the Iceland, didn't you?
The Iceland.
That's what you went over for. And I hitched up from Chichester to go and watch it.
Did you? I
Yeah.
can't remember that. Wow.
Yeah, I met up
Really?
with Johnny Sutton and 1 or 2 others.
Wow.
Yeah, and I probably hitched back late at night too.
Another gem comes out. Yeah.
Oh,
This is
history man.
This is the iconic picture of most of Guernsey's mid to late 60s musicians. The third one down from the top is the Man of Mystery. We're never quite sure which one that was, but everybody else from the top. We'll try it, Pete, you and me.
Ali.
Richard Aller at the top, known as Ali.
Yeah.
And then, was that Dave Race, the guitar player?
Oh, I don't know. It might
Below
be.
him? Okay,
Pass on the next one.
the little cherub standing in the corner there is the unknown.
He was Piano Steve. I'm not sure his full name, but Ali knows who he was.
Is that who it was?
He came over with Ali's band
Yeah.
because he was a piano player. But nobody would play
Right.
piano with
I
him.
never knew
And
who he was.
Ivor wouldn't let him touch his organ.
So going down,
Steady.
Tony Harrodine at the top there. Who was next?
Steve Harvey.
Steve, yeah.
Sax player.
Jeff Davison.
And Jeff Davison. And Vermeulen?
Yeah, that's Rob.
Yeah.
Oh, Vermeulen,
Okay,
yeah.
Pete, you take over because you've got
That's
your guys there.
Chips Chippendale.
Yeah.
Hammond.
Hammond.
Hammond, yeah.
Richard Hamill.
Richard Hamill. Is that Colin going? No.
Um,
Going downwards. Is that Marshy?
That's Len.
Right.
That's Seeley. On the far left.
Okay, so in the
Oh
corner
yeah, Len
there,
far left.
who's the one in the corner on the left?
That's
Len
Len.
Seeley.
That's Len.
Okay.
Then
Who's
Marshy
the
and
top?
Benny and Dave. The next two?
That's Graham LePedron up there, and that's Colin.
Yeah, I thought it was Colin.
Oh
Yeah.
Colin.
And you got
Colin always looked like that.
Dave. Ivor.
yeah. Right, so that was the other four.
And
Dennis Burns
Dennis and
and Roy Breo, my second cousin. And at the bottom, Dave Wrigley.
Dave Wrigley, yeah.
Dave Wrigley's the only
And then
non-musician.
these
Oh,
four.
careful, Ken.
That's my generation
At the bottom.
Guess
carrying
who
their
wasn't
award.
there? Anybody spot the missing person?
Right, answers on the postcard, please.
I just got to college and all the guys went across to Jersey.
Wow.
This is the picture I was
iconic.
asking you about earlier.
Yes.
Right.
This is the one I said I was trying to get across, but obviously maybe not.
Okay. Well, this was the little theatre, ram jammed with hippies with flowers, and this was the last night of the My Generation group because I was exiting stage left to go to college in London, and we decided we would put on a show. And what happened is we just got pelted. It was like the Battle of Flowers.
Yeah, it was.
You know, you get a carnation in your eye. Well, they don't do that anymore. Health and safety, something. You know, not allowed to.
Anybody that was there can see themselves at all? Anybody see themselves in the
It's
picture?
okay. You were only 16 or 17.
No.
Nobody's going to tell you. Well,
This is actually one of 3 or 4 iconic Guernsey rock photos, this one. Another one is the great picture of Axis playing in Church Square,
yeah, absolutely.
taken over the
Yeah.
shoulders of John and Mickey and,
The
and Alan. And
Now,
Colin.
I think
on the
Larry's there somewhere, in the kind of the middle somewhere. I can't really see him at the minute. But,
Barry stood behind. He's not in that picture.
what was his name? Yeah, there's
You looking
quite
at
a
the
few
audience?
band members as well. Anyway, it was a full house,
Yeah.
and we were exhausted at the end of it. But I think we only played for about 35 minutes, but it was a full-on show.
That was one of the nights when, if you look on the left-hand side, there was a speaker column, and whenever Tony Harrigan and Kenny Johnson were playing on the same gig, they both had one little stack, one little Vox column
Right.
per PA,
Yeah.
and they joined the two up
That's right.
for the big gigs, and
Yeah.
we had that on that night.
And
But on that particular night,
It's
last
a great
night,
picture of a Hillman Husky van, which was pulled out of a hedge, and I paid 20 quid for it.
Great car.
And it was great, got us around. I have to say, I've pretty much driven estate cars ever since, because you can get all your gear in the bag. This is outside the Linwood Bowl, and we were not in a band together at that time. I must say that I still have that guitar, and
I still have that
it's a bit
jumper.
wrecked now, but it's in my conservatory.
I wore that for
It's still got
my...
the yo-yo, isn't it?
Well, it looks a bit like something like that. Eh? But that jumper I wore for my one and only gig at St George's.
So we were, we used to meet up because we used to get afternoons off, Pete, didn't we?
Yeah.
For sport and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Thursdays, yeah.
Thursday
So
afternoon.
this was one of those occasions.
Yeah.
And that was almost certainly taken by Sam Clapp, who used to like to hang around and take photos of people. And that was one of the ones that I found in a scrapbook. And I think we probably couldn't get up there these days.
I think it's almost a certainty, isn't it?
I'm not going to swear to it. Without a ladder, I meant to say.
So this is when Pondazenda really
Yeah.
dancing
Yeah,
got in.
we're kicking off here, yeah.
Right, by this time we've met in college, and we used to meet up in London to go to the Marquee basically, or a concert, and maybe John Bidlow there. We'd go to watch Cream and The Who and people like that at the Savile Theatre. And we decided in London that we were going to form a band. So this was very early on. We were all in college, and we hadn't actually yet come back from half term. So we decided we were going to form a band. We weren't quite sure what we were going to do. But by Christmas we'd got it planned, and we also wound up Sam Clapp. And he was doing little 1-inch tabloid press. Who's coming at Christmas? News of the new band. Never heard before, and all that sort of stuff. Sam loved that stuff. And this is actually at the Badminton Hall, and a well-known tree surgeon there, looking at my guitar playing, sat down underneath the guitar. That's John Skillett.
In fact, the band was first mooted
The leader.
on the 14th of October 1967, just in case you needed to know, in a wimpy bar opposite the, what was that building called? The Centrepoint?
Alice?
It was like top of Tottenham Court Road. We met up there
Right.
in a wimpy, and that's with Richard, and that's when we get there.
Oh, he's got the time.
And then, I've got it all here. And then, we didn't name it for some time, until November the 11th. But that was after, I think, we'd both come home at half term and run over a few of your songs.
Yeah,
That was the first, and they were your songs, if I remember rightly. But then,
yeah.
the guys all came down to where I was in Chichester. and we were trying to knock around for a band name. And one of the things I can remember that was suggested, being a load of pretentious little prigs as we were, we thought we might call ourselves the Brain Drain, because we'd all gone away to college, you know. But in fact, then Richard was the one who came out with the name. Because Richard he was at college in North London, and Ponders End was one of these stations up there, I don't know if it's an underground station or whatever. And Richard just threw this out, and it just sort of stuck. And what helped it stick is there was a fruit machine just down the road at a pub called The Hope in Chichester, and the fruit machine used to whack out little tokens. And the little tokens used to have the letters P and E on them.
Oh,
And so we collected these tokens, knocked little holes in them, put them on chains, and we used to wear these around our necks sometimes. But these, the name actually came up. We were walking just
I
inside.
bet you still got yours.
Well, I was looking for it today, and I can't find it. I know I've got it. But we were
I'll
walking.
show a lot of my treasure boxes.
We were going past the Chichester Motel, where many years ago there was a horror film. It might have been called like Bat Out of Hell in there. I can't remember. But some gruesome murder took place there. And I lived in a vicarage at the time. We went out.
Yeah.
We stayed in a vicarage overnight.
Yeah. This
Oh, I
one.
moved.
Was that
Yeah.
our second gig?
It's your dad.
Yeah. So
second-
the year around about that time, all the students in Guernsey used to sort of get together and have different parties, and they'd go to Melody Press or whatever it is and have. You know, if you're going to do it at the Bowley, it's going to be 150 people. So you have it. The cards are made out with all the names of the invitees on it. Or is it inviters? I don't know. But anyway, so because we played, I think our first gig was at the Continental Hotel.
Well, you got
on
that
Jervis
right.
Point.
You got that bit right.
And this was the next one, and somebody
No, it's
there
not.
would have said, "Would you come to our?" What?
Apparently it's the fourth.
It's the fourth one, Pete.
It's the
Come
fourth
on,
one.
come on.
That's pretty close. Hey, you know, I could have got double top.
Yeah.
And that was taken at the airport one rainy Sunday afternoon. But the best one of that batch is the crane.
The crane picture, yeah.
Oh,
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I got the crane. I know the one you mean.
Yeah,
Hipster trousers
But
as
that
well,
was,
with the old belt. Yeah.
yeah. And my kids surprised me on my, I don't know what it was, it might have been my 60th birthday, and there was a picture from that series, and they blew it up and hung it behind me when I was on stage, for a rolled down after I walked on stage. So, anyway, yeah, now this is interesting.
Yeah. We moved on nearly a year here.
I lived opposite Lakehall, Templeview, which is now the laboratory there, and we played there, and they decided they were going to make a coffee bar for the youth club, and they were going to call it, very honoured, to be called the Ponders End Coffee Bar, and so they redecorated part of the building for relaxation and coffee, and we played a gig there, and I think the date's on there as well. It was September the 6th, 1968. I should have been back at college.
No, college never went back till late September, did it?
I'm running through a couple of like these sort of gig notices,
Oh.
just trying to get moving on a little
Okay,
bit.
you were tomorrow's papers, weren't you?
Yeah.
Aware of time as well. Not sure what year that would have been.
Yeah.
Beat session. Yeah.
Tomorrow's papers was the other
This one,
post-generation band, wasn't it? They-
That's right.
this one is actually dated February the 13th, 1969.
Valentine, is it?
Returning from England especially for
St.
St.
Valentine's.
Valentine's Night. And this is
Oh,
on the
cat
Easter
squirrel
egg.
for this.
It's on the Easter egg.
Yeah, cat
Never
squirrel.
know it's so cold.
I'm only 12.
In November, I'm on the Vale Castle.
This is
a North Wind.
You played a gig at the Vale Castle in November.
Yeah, I think that was one.
Why?
That was one of the first castle gigs, wasn't it? At Burnaby,
Probably, yeah.
put on by the Northern Venture Unit.
8 till 12. You imagine being up there at 12 o'clock at night, trying to get the gear out.
Well, I'm only 12, I have to be home in bed by 9. You know.
Tripping over your flares as he went down the... Number one, yeah.
Tangerine. Gary?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gary's Tangerine.
I knew I'd played with you before.
And this is back at the Linwood Bowl.
Yeah.
Prices are going up steadily. Look, 5 shillings.
The Linwood Bowl was really forward-looking, I thought, with the managers there. When we first played there the first year, I think we did 2 nights, Pete, wasn't it? Something like that. And then the following year, we did 6 nights for a whole summer season, you know, from July probably through till September. And the coffee bar down there was really quite popular. Us Limited played there as well. And did Tangerine Wheel play there? I can't remember.
Us Limited played. Us Limited were there for quite some time.
Yeah.
And anybody remember Min? Min behind the bar.
Great.
Everything was too loud.
Great venue.
She was not.
That was where we
never
tried out
happy
quite a
lady.
few things. At jam sessions as well. Dave Wade came over and played harmonica with us. He still visits Guernsey. And a London session man called Graham Dean, who played in the Storytellers up at Jerburg. And he was he's actually a very, very well-known session man, and was the sort of guy that they'd call in after the band had gone home. He'd go in and play guitar properly. I'm still in touch with Graham after all these years. He lives down in Wimborne, and he's now well into his 80s. But he came down and jammed, I think, maybe on a rehearsal with us one afternoon.
Would this be when you started at the Cellar then?
This was
The
1969.
early Cellar.
This wasn't our very first gig at the Cellar. We just played an odd one somewhere before. But I think this was our very first regular Cellar. Yeah, we got 20 quid a night.
Wow. Rich beyond our
20 quid a
wildest
night.
dreams. That was for all of you.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 20 quid a night. Yeah, and it was
You know,
2.
fish and chips was only £2, you know.
And the spaghetti bolognese.
There's Mr. Taylor.
Yeah, that was almost certainly at the British Legion
Yeah.
St Martin's, with those curtains.
Well, it looks like a very hot and sweaty night.
Oh yeah,
It was.
well, the summers were always wonderful back then.
Pete?
I've no idea who that is.
He's cute.
What's
isn't
the
he?
bass beat?
That's my. It was at top 20. It ended up with some hatchet merchant.
That was very early on.
Didn't it, Chris? Hey? I bought that off Bill Adlard, 15 quid. But it did me proud for a couple of years, to be fair.
That gig again was organised by Jan and Brian Torrow, and they ran it like a well-oiled machine really, because they probably had 3 or maybe even 4 bands on: Ace Ages, Tangerine Wheel, Ponder's End, and it was Chris and Orange Juice. That was it. A bunch of kids, and it was a great place.
Is this Sunray Park?
No, that's Summer Rain Manor.
Sunray Manor, sorry,
Manor,
Sunray
yeah.
Manor, yeah.
Yeah,
This was our last gig
with John.
with Johnny Barker.
Yeah.
The last gig of all.
Yeah.
Us and Axis did that. By this time we got amps that are taller than us.
I think it was kind of the Woodstock. I'm not quite sure who took these photographs actually, but it was a good festival feel to it.
That kit of Richards is still over here.
Were Axis on that gig as well?
Yeah,
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, they were for sure. Right in the woods at the back. It was really quite atmospheric.
I love the outdoor gig because it was like being able to open up your Ferrari, on the Landcrest road there, and get it to do 36 miles an hour. But with a 100-watt Marshall, you could turn it full on, and nobody, would complain because it was all going in the trees.
There is another very good picture, which I haven't got on here, which is with Axis playing out front. So you've got all the crowd, and then you've got Axis on the stage.
Yeah.
It's the same day.
Brian De Curie looking quite demonic in his black outfit and black hair.
Interestingly enough, even on gigs like this, we didn't wear jeans. as a pair of chords, because bands didn't turn up in jeans. You know, you play all the clubs, you always wore trousers. The way we got away with it eventually was wearing looms, wasn't it? We went from trousers to looms.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
More of that soon.
Oh right, okay.
The music, right. Let's see, it's probably identify the song and the band that originally did it. So originally was
We all on a ship and we went to Cherbourg. And the intention was to get off at Cherbourg and go play in the market square in front of the mairie or the hall there on the steps. So they shoved us all in the back of a Renault van, or it might have been a Citroen van. I think they're made out of Baco foil. Anyway, we carried our stuff. We had the Hammond organ and everything, and we had to offload it from the ship and pile it in the van, go and play a set.
Anybody own one of those? Own one of these? Anybody still got a copy of one of these? You have?
I haven't got the cover though.
No.
I know.
What I didn't realise
Neither
until I
have
was told the other night by Richard is that each one of those covers was hand painted. So he did each single, the painting of each one was each done individually, which must have taken an awful long time.
Yeah, that was Richard. Richard did that.
And so that was 1968?
Yeah.
And how did that come about?
Yeah, that was 68.
Well, as far as I'm aware, Ken Tostevin, who had a shop, and 2 shops, I think, and in Lille, he'd set up the idea of being able to record local bands using a fairly basic recording process. And what we did, we had Richard in one room and Pete and I were in the other, and then I'm not quite sure where the engineer was, through a hatch, I think, on the other side of the wall, and that's how we did it. And it was played live and pretty much mixed there and then. It wasn't multi-track like the studios that we've got now, or even most of you probably got multi-track recorders in your computers, and could do more than we could ever do back in those days. You know,
Technology was really quite primitive back then, wasn't it?
very primitive. Yeah. Now the interesting thing about this is those 2 guys, Rich and Pete, were very, very supportive of me, and I'll never ever forget that. These are original songs: Sleep and Turn, Valley of the Dolls, and not on Broadway, but you know there were 7, I think, original songs on
So was this bit,
learn the song again after recording it.
I shy away from things unknown. I am afraid. Yet still the fantasy of life runs on.
I'm
And
aware
I
of
am
time, so I
made.
feel we move on.
I am.
It was nice to hear that. You were talking about the camp before. I think this is the camp, isn't it? Or did we work out this was the
This is
bowl?
actually the bowl.
This is the bowl.
And I had a conversation with Richard the other day, and he says that he's convinced that he didn't make that banner, that somebody gifted it to us. And we're trying to figure out who it is. Are you here? No, we don't know. But we did, in our early days, we did use that banner and we just sort of pin it to the wall.
That's Tina, isn't it? Yeah. With Roy. Is that right?
Yes, that's true.
Was it Roy?
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
Irish boyfriend that she had before Roy.
It's Tina.
Yeah.
There's the banner again. Rich did paint the artwork on the front of his two bass drums. He was very, at that time, very influenced by Ginger Baker and a twin drum kit.
There you go. There's the other side of it. Cool.
Yeah.
Lovely.
That was almost certainly taken at what I remember as the Ozan Hall, which is it a museum now? On the Minio Plaza.
So that's the church that's used now as the archive, isn't it?
Is that what it
The
is?
Barnabas. That's it.
They called the club the
So
Coffin.
it was a
Coffin,
youth
as I
club.
remember.
It was a stage, and all those halls had stages because they used to do pantomimes and all sorts of stuff, you know. So that was definitely there.
Is that one of yours, Chris, is it?
I've worked with it.
Another one, yeah.
Another one, yeah.
This is Vallejo, isn't it?
This is Belcastle.
No, that's right, Belcastle.
Yeah.
Belcastle, yeah.
Yeah. Again, another great venue. Who were the people that put up the DJs? Who did it? Was
BMCI. BMCI.
And
Which is,
it was always a fun thing, apart from carrying the gear.
Yeah. And there he is.
Wow,
We did a lot of work with Oggy at the granary, various places. My memory of Oggy is when John Barker was with us. John bought a Gibson 335, lovely guitar. Dennis Burns has got one that's worth a fortune. But John had bought this 335, and he was having trouble tuning it, Chris. There's a surprise, isn't it? Anyway, John was having trouble tuning it, and Oggy, who was pretty dry with his humour, said, how much did that guitar cost you, John? And John said, 235 quid, I think it was in those days. And Oggy just said, 235 quid, it don't worry, we'll stay in tune.
Poor John.
There's
Oggy.
There he is, yeah.
Great pal of ours.
Yeah, he was a real good pal. Yeah.
You know, he really was an artist in so many different ways. One of which was getting all the fancy shirts that we wore, and one-offs. So you never actually saw anybody wearing your shirt on stage. It was,
In 1998, when Mark Guillou ran what he entitled Cellar 98, which is only just after Pete and I got to doing little bits of work together again, we were up at the Bolio, I was going to say, up at the Carlton, and Richard and I were stood at one end of the bar. Pete might be stood with us. We were at one end of the bar, and we looked across the bar. We saw this bloke at the other end of the bar, and we really had to do a big double treble take on it. Yeah. It's bloody Oggy. It's Oggy, and it was great to see. He looked quite smart. He didn't have a hair anymore. But Mark said to us that he'd approached Oggy about coming over for this sort of reunion, and he wasn't really up for it. And then he just turned up. And I think that's the last time I saw him. But no, it was great, brilliant.
I got a lovely letter from Pat after Oggy passed, saying how much he enjoyed seeing us and working with us. You know, so he was over on the UK, in the UK at the time.
That was in the days.
They were great pals, really, really solid pals.
That was in the days when DJs used to work with bands. You know, they had their slot, we had our slot. They made sure, or Ollie did, that they didn't replicate any material. You know, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he was absolutely Bowie mad, and probably inspired us to play some of the stuff, you know, Suffragette City and stuff like that we used to do. So yeah, it was great, and he had a bug. Remember that? Yeah, I heard that once. It was like, well, I can't say she's off the shovel here, can I? What she did. It was so light. You know, he had about a 3-watt engine, but you could sort of really hit it and woof, you'd gone. Yeah, lovely. It's so real. I mean, he was a DJ, he drove a bug for crying out loud, and he had some really cool shirts.
You did a few of these.
See the other name that sneaked in at the bottom there?
Ted.
You did a few of these basketball things, didn't you? You did quite a few, and surf
club as well,
yeah. This is an interesting one. The Pony Club.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the worst behaved gigs I ever played at was at St James with the Pony Club. Yeah, it was. No, it was a later band.
Spelled discotheque right though.
And a couple of college dances as well.
Oh, down. Well, in my diary, I've got 3 gigs at the college. We know that one was in the gym because that was the first time we had our sort of upmarket guitars, and I couldn't work out where the third one was.
Lots of Christmas gigs.
Granary.
Cheeky. Yeah.
Cheeky
I wasn't taking a dump, by the way. It was just where I was sat.
A lot of these theatre gigs were, quite a few of them were run by the late Errol Groves and his group of people, and they did quite a few. You must have done 1 or 2, Colin. Did you ever do a little spot at those? Yeah. Things like the Bangladesh, when they had the flood disaster, and various others. And
hello.
yeah, but that was Errol. But they had some when he was it the Magic Theatre, the shop at the bottom of Vicky Road and Vomit, wasn't it? Sold all sorts of things. Yeah, I could tell you the story about the cake that they cooked in one of those gigs, but I won't.
I don't remember it.
No, neither do I.
And of course there were some quite big gigs.
Oh, you've got
in the little theatre.
Yeah. Oh, Hitchcock, Railway. Oh, Shadowfax with Jezebel. Skelly was in Shadowfax, and Baz Larish.
Yes.
And one of those was in a Jersey group called Kia Paravel, who came over and played at the County Gardens through one of the back contests. Yeah. And I went to see them at Tangmere Air Force Base.
I'm flicking through, mainly because I'm just aware of time, because we're looking at probably
Chris?
25 minutes.
Yeah.
And we've got a bit of music to get through. Back at the
What
cellar.
were you thinking?
Oh, wow,
Thinking.
Oh, they put an apostrophe in.
They were great. We got on really well with them.
Apostrophe police. And the side door, which was a very thriving sort
Well,
of place.
people tell you how we got the gig down at the Savoy. Won't you?
What?
Well, I will.
You will.
Yeah,
You can remember it.
They never used to use Guernsey bands down there. And occasionally we get a call because the boat hadn't made it over and they were minus a band on a Monday night or something like that. And it came to a bit of a head really, and we were downstairs at the little theatre rehearsing for our Compass show, which I'm sure Pat's got something up. And a phone call came, could you do it? And we refused. We said, we'll only do it if you give us a week or a 2-week residency somewhere. And that came about, but it opened the door for a lot of other Guernsey bands eventually. The Savoy became quite a spot. Love Affair, well, the Love Affair that we got
Was not the Love Affair that you heard on the radio?
not the one on the radio. What they did is they replaced the original singer
Ellis.
with a bloke called Gus Eden, who was also a flute player. And he was the only one who came over here. They replaced the rest of the band as well. So the main bloke was the original replacement singer. So tribute band really.
And the big hit that they had?
Everlasting
Love.
Love.
It's a great record. Well, it says it.
Oh, it's a great record, yeah. Can't get away from that.
Ellis went on to form a band called, guess what, Ellis. And he had Luther Grosvenor, otherwise known as Ariel Bender, who used to play for Mott the Hoople. And they had this band, and they were a raucous rock and roll band.
Now this gig has gone down as being one that was a bit nefarious for various reasons.
Yeah.
Didn't it get shut down? Is that right? They stopped playing.
They were swinging on the curtains. They were abusing our gear. They were doing all sorts of stuff. They were terrible.
Yeah, it wasn't a
They
comfortable
wouldn't
evening, that
stop.
one.
They wouldn't stop playing. They closed the curtains on them and they carried on playing.
Yeah.
Then you had somebody had to rip the electrics out.
Yeah.
They were a proper rock band.
There's Magic Theatre down the bottom as well. That's great.
They were proper bad boys, these, weren't they?
Yeah. Well, unlike Love Affair, the bass player was wearing a frock.
Now, we need to
Oh
speak.
God, that's who I remember.
We need to speak about this because
Oh, yeah.
this really was unprecedented. This is where I think of Ponder's End as really pushing the envelope of what was going on in terms of music locally. So, how did this one come about?
Right, well, Joe Rozan basically was organising the idea of putting on a mixed media, multimedia performance for Jesus Christ Superstar. And the show was taking off. A load of rock stars had actually recorded the first version of it. Ian Gillan, I think, was singing. Yeah, he was Jesus Christ. So the music was getting a lot of performance, and it was reaching out to a lot of different genres of people, of listeners. So Joan wanted to do that. She got us together, Pete, didn't she? And discussed what could be done. So we would be part of the live music part, and then there would be dance, and there would be playback of some of the recording, the original recordings, and it would be done in the town church. And that is a picture of, I can't remember, was it Judy somebody?
No, the lady dancing. Well, that photo came up, and I put the question on Facebook saying, and who was that dancer? And actually, she responded to it, the person who did it at the end.
Yeah.
And she went under the name of James C. C-E-E. And I don't know who was talking to, but I think we found out that she actually was actually married to George Crossan. It might be George's,
Yeah.
something like that.
I mean,
but she made the link after 50 years of doing this.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it was great.
So we would have picked songs from the which were more suited to what we do or were doing, and that the idea of it was so popular that the queues were up Fountain Street to get in. So we had to do the performance twice that evening, and it was on spec. So it was really quite an interesting thing. I think was Malcolm Reynard involved in that.
Malcolm was doing a lot of it because he
Malcolm
worked
Reynard
on
was
it as well.
an extremely.
And Chris was in on it as well. Really.
Yeah.
Cool. But there were, when we rehearsed or when we met to discuss what we were going to do with this, we went into the vicarage and discussed it. No, or we had the rehearsal in the church, and it's the only time in my whole life that I've had prayers before a rehearsal.
Oh, you've never done any
Which is fine,
country
it
music?
turns out.
Country music gigs.
Yeah.
But going back to the poster that was on before, it just shows that archiving can be fun, even when you don't realise you're doing it. So I was cleaning out a filing cabinet in my conservatory, and I found a load of old press cuttings and stuff that hadn't made it into the scrapbook. And I was looking through, as you do, what's this, what's that? That was included, the programme. And I opened up this folded sheet of paper, and it was that poster. And I have no idea who painted it, but it was hand painted. It had been hidden away amongst all this stuff for decades, and I sent you a picture of it.
Yeah.
Took a photo and sent you a picture. That's the first time it's been seen since the performance.
The initial reaction was to wonder if Richard had painted it, actually, didn't we? We thought it was possible, but I don't think he laid any claim to that, did he, in the end? Interestingly, Joan, who organised that thing, eventually was, as you probably all know, became British Empire Medal. And when she was awarded it at Government House, I was invited along to be there. And a lot of it was based on that piece. That was the particular piece of work that got them really going, wasn't it? That superstar one.
Now this is something I've been really excited
Yeah.
about because I'm a bit of a throwback and I love prog and all that stuff. And when I found out that the guys had done like their own full-blown rock suite, I thought that's amazing. And the fact that it, that it was done in quadraphonic sound as well, and you had a Moog, not a Moog, was it the BC3?
Well, I did have a
BC3
synthesizer. Yeah.
synthesizer on stage. So we do have. We do have a little bit of it coming up.
I'll just tell you about the synth, because it was
Yeah.
a one-off thing that at the time certain players were getting famous for using these synthesizers, and Keith Emerson was using a wall full of these things that were all like a telephone exchange. And I heard on the grapevine that the composer Barry Gray, who lived out at St Saviour's at that time, had a synthesizer. So, ever being cheeky, I rang him up, announced who I was, and said, I wonder if I can come and see your synthesizer. And he was very gracious, and he said, yes, do come next Sunday afternoon, 2 o'clock. So I went there, and I walked into this room, and it was just like full of stuff. Harpsichords and stuff, and he had this synth, which was called the VCS3. It was a very, very early design, and the upshot of it was Barry had all sorts of equipment, and we got to know each other quite well, and he was the first guy to actually pay me for a music session, and he was doing a piece of music for a cartoon, and I added some guitar to some of the work, and he was using one of the very first electronic instruments that was called a martinet or a martineau, an instrument that you played a key and then you could change the sound of it, and it came through a voice box, shaped a little bit like a lute. So a fantastic person, and also very gracious. He taught me a lot. But he then sold me the synth, and one of the things that had to be done with that synthesizer was you had to tune it, and some of the technology in it wasn't really quite doing the job. So there was a wonderful guy called Andre Goubert, who was in the Sea Scouts, I think, and I met Andre several times at the little theatre doing gang shows. And I took it to him and I said, we've got to take the guts out of this thing and we've got to make it work so that it actually plays like a keyboard, not a controller. And so when we did the compass thing, we'd arranged which parts that the synth was going to play, and we actually did make it quadraphonic, where we put speakers at the back of the hall and at the front. So when people were, especially the people sat in the middle of the hall, they would have sounds whizzing over their heads. And it was quite an experience. And that was all done with the support of Jeff and the team from the theatre who allowed us to do all this stuff. You know.
Okay, so we've got a clip. Pete found a rehearsal tape, which so it hadn't been heard for over 50 years, this release,
No,
hadn't it?
nobody's ever heard this.
Nobody's ever heard this, and what you've basically done is you've managed to bring it a bit more up to date, put a few bits, sprinkle a bit of fairy dust on it,
Yes.
and make it sound,
Well, it's a pretty hard listen, okay, so I'll tell you that, because it was recorded with fairly antique equipment, but it just shows perhaps the way things were done, and we decided we weren't going to record the concerts. We ended up doing 2 concerts of it, because we didn't want to be put off by the recording process. So there were lots of different recordings, and here it comes.
This is about 6 minutes long, okay? So if you fancy getting on a drink, anything like that, you do so, and then we'll see where we go. Pete's the same, he hasn't noticed that stuff. Contributions from each of us on this particular show. Yesterday, crossing the line. Okay, so there you go. That's the first time in 50 years, and over 50 years, you would have heard Compass performed 2 nights, 1 night, 1 night only.
No, 2 nights.
2
But
performances.
we did the first one for a sellout audience, which was fantastic. But was it Edmund Burbridge? Was he the guy? I can't remember. One of the artists, politicians said, you can do it again if you want. And so we went back some weeks later, I think. Any idea, Pete? Well, when it was? I think one of the interesting things was that living in London during the 60s, everybody had light shows. And so what we did, we borrowed, bearing in mind this was 73,
Sarah.
72. The light show thing had been worn out a little bit, but we borrowed some projectors and got some slides and filled the little theatre with lights.
That's Cheryl, yeah.
You know, highly influenced by the people that we were watching at the time.
So this is going back to the Sherburne photos thing.
That's in Sherburne.
Yeah.
That's Cheryl, for sure.
Yeah. That's my missus there on the right.
Is that Oggy on the left next to you?
That's me and
And
Oggy, yeah.
Oggie's there.
And then Richard and Pearl
Yeah.
in the middle.
That's on the steps in Sherburne.
Yeah, that was shortly after we'd won a competition in Jersey. And we had
Pepper Tree.
We had a Jersey band called Pepper Tree on there with us as well. And a few other Jersey mates, people like Brian Skelly came over with us. I don't know if any of you remember a band called Chameleon that did a couple of seasons down to Cellar. And they influenced us quite a bit. They're a fabulous band. Absolutely amazing.
Oh, look, it's got paint on.
It's got paint. Well, there's that particular. I still play that guitar. That's my working guitar. It's now 55 years old, and it's not the colour it started out. And I took it to. No, I didn't take it. I went down Denmark Street a couple of years ago and went into the vintage guitar shop. And the bloke there has obviously got an eye for old sods who come in having a look around. And I walked out and he said, before I went out, he said, have you got anything that might interest me? And I said, yeah. I said, I've got a 1971 Telecaster. And he went, oh, I'll give you something thousand for that. That's quite funny. He said, have you got anything else? I said, yeah, I've got a 1969 jazz bass. And he offered me an absolutely astronomical price for it. I said, but the original colour's not on it, and he cut the price in half. Completely in half. But then I said to him, I've got the original finish at home in a plastic bag. I always kept it. So if anybody wants to put it back together again, considering I'd scraped it off with a penknife anyway in the first place, and the guitar then got rod sealed. I can't, but I love it like that, you know. But yeah, I've still got, and in fact, I don't know what we're doing, but my missus picked up the bag one day and said, "What's this substance in here?" that's the original finish from my guitar. But it's amazing how much they accumulate in value. I mean, 197 quid that guitar cost me in 1971, and you know they were offering me 50 times what it cost. Good investment really, but I don't count because it's just the guitar I play. You know, and,
Still got it? Yeah.
oh yeah, still got it. Yeah.
And so all good things must come to an end. And in 1974, Sarge, other opportunities came knocking. So to speak.
Yeah.
Coming up to 50 years.
It was one of the toughest decisions that I've ever had to make, really. But the opportunity was there to do different things. You can obviously tell from what we've said before, I was really keen on recording, I was really keen on songwriting, and I needed another level to move to. And one of the bands that came over were working with Tony Hatch, who went on to massive fame, not only as an orchestral writer and performer, producer, Petula Clark and people like that, but also obviously in New Faces, and he became a judge. This band called Maxwell's were talking about working with him on finding a single. And the one thing and people know this, one thing I always was interested in was turning professional. We talked about it many times early on when we formed the band in '68, and we all ended up, you know, following our own professions as well as playing. How the heck we did it, I don't know. You'd be playing 6 nights a week at the Stella Club till 2 o'clock in the morning, and then and go and work for the States Works following morning.
Hang on.
He'd go to school. You know.
He was a civil servant. I had to face a class of 25 kids. I couldn't lock the door. But I'll tell you a quick story about my headmaster at the time at Beecham, Mervyn Charles Thomas, who I had enormous respect for after this particular incident. I came in one Saturday morning, definitely knackered. You know, we'd done 6 nights, I don't know how many nights, so he said, Peter, you look so bright this morning. He said, come into my office. And he opened the bottom drawer of his filing cabinet, pulled out a bottle of brandy and poured me a very, very large one. And then the next day he said, I understand how it is for you. He said, all these late nights. He said, I'll tell you what I've done. He said, I put 2 of your free periods together to give you a double on Saturday morning. And you don't have to come in until, you know, playtime. Now that to me is quality management. You know, so there you go.
And one of the interesting things, Pete, is you went from blue pants to rather nice suits.
Right, that's Maxwell, so it was a bit of a shock seeing me in a cabaret suit, but that's what they did. I wasn't particularly interested in that side of it, but I wanted to know more about the recording. And so Glenn Morgan and I are still in contact. Trevor Thomas, Glenn Morgan's top right, lower left is Trevor Thomas, fantastic singer and fantastic drummer, now retired. The two in the middle, Frank and Malcolm, are no longer with us, and that person on the left is actually me in a suit. So when I got there, it was really quite a difficult time because they told me they'd provide accommodation and the work was waiting, and basically the person I was replacing they hadn't told. So when I landed in Warrington near Manchester, it was very embarrassing because they all turned up to go to this gig, and the guy that I was supposed to be replacing, Jeff his name, he's a very good friend of mine now, and he was still in the band. And it was just like, well, what's going on here? And also the flat they promised me wasn't available for 6 months. So it was a bit of a, you know... Anyway, we got going and we started doing it, but the band didn't last more than 9 months. But during that time, I'd done the recordings with Tony Hatch and the songwriter David Parton, known as Des. And we got on like a house on fire, and Des had produced an album and he wanted a band. So he offered Glenn and I a job in his new band. And I still play with those guys now.
There's Des up there.
That's Des in the front there. That's George Glover, my good buddy, plays keyboards, and he and I are in a band in Germany called the United Blues and Rock Explosion. Bit of a mouthful, but it's all original blues, and we're touring in October. John Wright played with the Southern Brothers, and Ronnie Smith, guitar player, fabulous guitar player, no longer with us unfortunately. Des is still around, still writing songs.
Some of you will remember that David Parton had a big hit with Isn't She Lovely, which is the Stevie Wonder song.
Yeah.
Although I don't think people at the time realised that. Now, for some reason, the band were never on like Top of the Pops or anything. It was always
I was
just
there.
him. Were you there?
I was there.
Because it was only just him.
Just him,
Yeah.
yeah.
There is video footage of you on YouTube with the Des Parton Band
Yes,
on a kids show,
yes.
but it's a bit of a blink and you miss it moment. You're on it for about literally 2 seconds.
Oh, about that.
A lot of green shirt.
Well, A green shirt.
Green shirt.
Yeah, it is on YouTube. What it is, it's a mishmash. I took the follow-up single for Des was called "In Everything You Do," and the promotion for that was to do Granada TV, I think, show, and so I had a recording of that, but I also had a recording of a song that I wrote called "Gotta Get Back Home Again," and so what I did, I edited the music and the clips of in Everything You Do to try and kind of do a video version of that.
Clever so-and-so.
Technology.
Technology. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say that unfortunately we have come to an end. We've tried to get through as much as possible. There is some stuff we haven't covered, I'm afraid.
We'll come back next year.
But yeah, come back next year and maybe do a bit more.
Part two.
I'd like to say a big thank you to Sarge and to Pete. All the guys from St James for their help.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those of you who don't know me, my name is Patrick. I'm the founder of the admin of the Stomping and the Civil Wing Facebook group, which I think most of you guys here know and use. It's a great place where people where I post a lot of this stuff. Pictures of music between 68 and 70 in Guernsey. The whole idea is to have a chat, reminisce about the good times, and hopefully we can carry it on. And hopefully we can have more events like this. The second event we've done, it'd be great to do another one with these guys and some other people. Thank you so much for your support. It means a lot to see so many people here. We sold out tonight, which is brilliant. And
Well done, Pat.
that's
a lovely venue as well.
Yeah, what a great venue. Thank you very much. The bar is open, I believe, until 10 o'clock. Is that right? 10 o'clock, yeah. So if you do want to,
I'll have another Coke then.
please come and have a chat with us. If you have got any old bits of memorabilia that you want signing, the guys are happy to do that. That's it. Thanks very much. See you next week.
It's been like a job with the phone for 20 years.
Thank you very much.